Hello, Internet. It is I, Malik Aaron, and welcome back to Box Office Predictions. Today, we're going to be talking about Scream 6. So, as usual, we're going to be going over the pros and cons. So, let's get to it. Pros. This is obvious, as you can already tell, this is the sixth Scream movie. And this series has been going on for a long time, since 1996. All right. There's a lot of history here. So let's go through all of it. So Scream came out in 1996, was directed by Wes Craven. One of the main names in horror. I mean, that the dude's responsible for the Nightmare on Elm Street series. But yeah, Scream was not like other horror movies. It was different because it had self-awareness. It had a lot of meta commentary. It called out tropes, it directly referenced other horror movies, and it made it different, made it stand out. And not only that, it used like the who done it formula where you have this killer Ghostface, but you don't know who Ghostface could be. Ghostface could be anyone. And then throughout the movie, you have this cast of characters and you have to determine like who could be the killer, and sometimes the movie intentionally misleads you until like it eventually reveals the killer or killers, because sometimes there could be more than one. And yeah, like Scream, it started out real slow at the box office, but word of mouth, it had long legs. Like it just kept going and going and going until eventually it made 100 million domestic, 170 million worldwide on a budget of like 15 million. So huge hit, big old hit. So naturally you want to make a sequel, and a sequel they made less than a year later. And this sequel, it went through a lot. It apparently, like, the plot leaked online. Like that was like the early days of the web. But the plot leaked online. They had to do a bunch of stuff. It was hired as a nightmare. Apparently all the Scream movies have had production issues. But yeah, but Scream 2 was pretty infamous. But even with that, the movie opened with like over 32 million, which was a huge jump from 6 million. Its legs were a lot weaker, but that's to be expected for a sequel like this. Still made over 100 million domestic, basically the same as Scream, minus like $1 million. And like both Scream 1 and Scream 2 are considered horror classics. Well, Scream 1 more than Scream 2, but both are still really good. So, yeah, Scream is on a roll right now. It's fantastic. Are the movies have been making a lot of money. They've been received well. What could go wrong? Enter Scream 3 from 2000, which was at the time it was like the closing chapter of the trilogy, the final act of the trilogy. And you think, there'd be obviously there was a lot of hype surrounding it, and it did open more than Scream 2, had a bigger opening than that movie. And as of this moment, I mean, it's not going to last too much longer, but this has as the biggest opening weekend for a Scream movie. But unfortunately, word of mouth was not so good. And it had shorter legs, and it made only 89 million domestic, 161 million worldwide, which is still good, definitely. But I imagine people expected a lot more, considering this is the third Scream movie. People expected more from it, box office wise and review wise, critically. I mean, I just saw Scream 3 like a few hours ago on Paramount Plus to prepare myself for Scream 6, cuz I'm trying to get through. I've already seen Scream 1 and 2. I saw those last year. I'm trying to get through 3, 4 and 5 before I watch 6 this weekend. And I watched Scream 3. I mean, it's okay. It's not horrible, but yeah, like some of the some like the meta stuff got a little too much for my taste. And yeah, just it could have been a lot better, but it wasn't a terrible experience. But yeah, it could have been better. But yeah, Scream 3, a lot of people were like, okay, that's it for Scream. It's over. It's done. Enter Scream 4, 11 years later. So 2000 to 2011, we have Scream 4, or I guess Scream 4, Scriforum, as the title suggests. So this was like the big relaunch for Scream, or at least the initial relaunch for Scream. And obviously, the expectations were very high because the first three Scream movies made a nice amount of money. And this one, like review wise, it was well better received than Scream 3. But box office wise, this movie just it I don't know if bomb is too harsh of a word, but compared to like by normal standards, cost 40 million, made like 95 million. But oh, that's not too bad. But compared to the other Scream movies, it's a bomb, dude. It tanked. I mean, it only opened with like $18 million. It made like 38 million total domestically, which isn't much higher than the opening weekends for 2 and 3. And keep in mind, those movies came out over a decade before this one. So ticket sale wise, oh god. Actually, I think I can look it up for ticket sales, and it is gonna be great. Scream 3. Uh oh jeez. Scream 2. Scream. So this is inflation. As you can see, there's a big dip. Total 208, 201, 151, 44. Like Jesus Christ. That is awful. So yeah, just nobody gave a damn about Scream 4. The audience was not there. And I feel like that's because like the nostalgia boom hadn't kicked in yet. Because at this point with the horror genre, it was literally just nothing but remakes. Remakes, just one after another, like a conveyor belt of remakes. People bitch about remakes now and reboots now. You weren't paying attention to the horror genre in the 2000s, okay? Because they were everywhere. Remakes and reboots. It was an infestation. It was awful. And most of them were trash. Some were okay, but most were garbage. And this wasn't garbage, but I guess people were just like, ew, Scream? Why? Why is that? Why did that make a comeback? And yeah, that it didn't. The comeback didn't go to plan. We'll say that it did not go to plan. And you think that'd be it, but then fast forward another 11 years, we have Scream 5, which was just called Scream. Like this was like the next relaunch, but at this point the nostalgia boom had kicked in. It had been in effect for years, so Scream 5's chances were a lot stronger than Scream 4's because of that. Not to mention when it came out like last January, it was like the only movie anybody cared about. And at that point, everyone has watched Spider-Man No Way Home like 15 times. So people were ready to watch something else. And a decent amount of people watched this because it opened with like $30 million, made 81 million domestic, 131 million, 38 million worldwide. It was received well. A lot of people saying this is one of the better Scream sequels, probably the best since 1 and 2. And yeah, it was definitely a return to form for the series, a real return to form. And yeah, I mean, sure, it didn't make as much as 1, 2, or 3, but it destroyed Scream 4, and that was the real goal. Make more than Scream 4. And it certainly did that. And it definitely justified its success justified them continuing the series, and here we are. 1 year later, I guess they realized they wasted like a good 22 years um of like no Scream, right? Those 11-year gaps, no Scream. Like we can't do that again. We got to make the sequel now. And they sure did that. And here we are with Scream 6. So Yeah, I mean, the series has been very popular, minus the fourth movie. um, and the last movie was received well, made money, so this movie has the benefit of a well-received predecessor, and that's always good. So yeah, just Scream as a brand name recognition. That's a pro, easy pro right there. Another pro is that direct competition wise, there's nothing. There's been nothing for a long time. I think the last horror movie that came out was at least the last major horror movie that people cared about. I believe it was Megan. Was it Megan? I think it was Megan. That was like way back in early January. Like ever since then, there's just been nothing for the horror genre. So there's been a lot of pent up demand for like horror, and for all those horror fans, you get this, and I'm pretty sure they're going to be more than happy with it. So, and not to mention there won't be any direct competition until April. April, there's going to be some horror movies coming out. Like Renfield's more of a horror comedy, while Evil Dead Rises straight horror. So, um, yeah, but it'll be a while. So yeah, Scream 6 has a lot of time by itself. By itself. So yeah, lack of direct competition as a pro, and when it comes to competition as a whole, there's not a whole lot. I mean, there's Creed 3, but that's really it. I feel like the other two movies coming out this weekend, 65 and Champions, they're not gonna do great at all. So it's Scream 6's weekend. It just is. So competition wise, it's pretty weak out there. It's so that's definitely a pro for this movie. Another pro is that reviews for this movie are quite good. It is at I believe it was at 76. Okay, it's at 76%, which is more than solid. And its audience score, last I checked, was at Rotten Tomatoes is being a bitch. I don't know why it's being like the website is just not functioning right. Um, Audience score was like at 93%, which is more than solid, and its cinema score is at a B plus, which is on par with the other Scream movies. I'm looking this up right now. The only ones that did worse were Scream 3, which got a B, and Scream 4, which got a B minus, which is something. But yeah, all the other Screams, all the other Scream sequels, they all have B pluses. So at least word of mouth is on par with those, which is a good thing. So word of mouth is pretty good review wise, audience score wise. It's all good. So that's a non-issue. So that's a pro definitely. I guess another pro is that although this is the sixth movie in the series, this movie does have like a change in location. It's going like to New York, right? New York, new rules. So that helps it stand out, helps it, freshen things up a little bit, which, makes it a little more, it gives it some purpose. So that's more of like a minor pro, but I'm gonna label that as a pro. And then let's talk about the cast here. I mean, there's like two people I really should mention. One of them who is in this movie, and one of them who's not in this movie. And I'll explain who's not in this movie later when we get to the cons. But yeah, Jenna Ortega is like the big one here. You all know who she is at this point. We all know who she is. I mean, she was only in this small little show on Netflix called Wednesday, this little show based off the Addams Family that only became like one of the biggest shows in Netflix history in a short amount of time. No big deal. And the show also had a viral dance scene with Wednesday, which I believe like the clip of that on YouTube has like 44 million views. That is a lot of views. That is nothing to sneeze at. So yeah, Jenna Ortega is like super recognizable now. Everyone knows who she is. So having her Like the timing of Scream 6 could not be any better because of that. So, yeah, having Jenna Ortega. I mean, she was in Scream 5 too, but like now she's more well known than ever. So, that's great for Scream 6. So, I'm going to label that as a pro, definitely. Um I think that's it with pros. I think I've covered everything, all the major stuff. Okay, cons. I don't at this point like it's kind of a Creed 3. It's pretty much the same the exact same with Creed 3 where well when Creed 3 did not have Sylvester Stallone or Rocky Balboa, Scream 6 does not have Nerve Campbell aka Sidney Prescott. Now Sidney has been the main character of the Scream movies forever, since the first one. All of them have had her. This one doesn't, and that's mainly because um of like negotiations between her and like the studio, like they fell through because she felt like she wasn't getting paid enough, like she wasn't satisfied for pay, and things just didn't work out. And it's a shame. It does suck she's not here, but at this point, I had the same concerns about Rocky not being in Creed 3, and those concerns were all for nothing because Creed 3 had did fantastic last weekend. So if Creed can survive without Rocky, I'm pretty sure Scream can survive without Sydney. Although I really hope when they do make Scream 7, because you know there's going to be a Scream 7. uh, I really hope with Scream 7 they could be able to work something out. That way she can return. That would be really neat. But still, for Scream 6, like her absence clearly isn't having an effect on the movie's box office. So, yeah. Yeah. Hopefully she comes up for Scream 7. But for Scream 6, despite her absence, it doesn't seem to have being a huge effect. It was just like a concern I had for a while, but that concern seems to be all for naught. So, yeah, just want to mention that as more of like a con in passing. um, I forgot to mention Thursday previews. God, for its pros, how can I forget? Thursday previews are really good. Made like 5.7 million. Like for comparison's sake, Scream 5, which that's what I'm gonna call it. I know it's called Scream. It's Scream 5. Let's just call it Scream 5. I guess they didn't want to call it Scream 5 because people were like, oh no, another Scream movie? Like they wanted this to be like a relaunch, a proper relaunch, like what Halloween 2018 was for Halloween. But yeah, Scream 5 that had a Thursday preview of 3.5 million, so 5.7 is a huge jump from that. Um and actually, I believe its Thursday preview was better than Creed 3's. Let me check. I'm pretty sure it is. Creed 3. What was this Thursday preview? 5.45. So be even bigger than that. So that's great. That's awesome. And I believe there's the Halloween ends. Let's compare it to that. I think that's a valid enough comparison. Although Halloween ends had to deal with Peacock and everything, while Scream 6 is theatrical only, but yeah, it's previews were even higher than Halloween Ends. So, yeah, good. So it's really good. So, Scream 6 is in a very good position right now. It is in a damn good position to succeed. So, yeah, Thursday previews are great. So that's a big pro. But a con is that competition after this is going to get a little rough. I mean, we have Shazam 2 next weekend and John Wick 4 the next weekend, and then Dungeons and Dragons, although I don't think that's going to be a hit. I think that's going to be a bomb, but it's still going to do something. It's going to cause some impact. So that's the like another weekend, and then after that's the Super Mario Brothers movie, which I'm expecting to make big money. I think everyone's expecting that to make big money now. So yeah, and not to mention all the other movies in April, like Renfield and Evil Dead Rise. Is a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot. I don't know if Scream 6 can deal with all that, but I believe for this one weekend, it will truly shine. So yeah, but competition coming up is going to be a problem. So yeah, that's a con. But that's really it. I think this movie's golden, pretty much like box office wise. I think it's going to do great. So opening weekend. So let's go back to Scream. The Scream movies. Scream, the whole thing. So the highest of all the Scream movies when it comes to its debuts is 34 million. That number is it's over. It's just over. Scream 6 is going to beat that number. That's guaranteed. But by how much? That remains to be seen. Uh I think its opening weekend will probably be in between 40 and 45 million. I think that's achievable at this point. I think that's realistic. It'll do a lot better than Scream 5, and which was already a decent little hit, which means like it's going to I don't know if this can beat the record of the first Scream, which was like 103 million domestically. I don't think it could. It's doable, but I don't know if it can happen. But granted, I wasn't so sure Creed 3 would beat Creed 1 and 2, and it's gonna beat them like in like a week or so. So what do I know? But yeah. Scream 6 will no doubt have the biggest opening weekend for a Scream movie, and its total maybe 90 to 100 million, I think, is reasonable enough for Scream 6. So yeah, definitely expect Scream 7 in the near future. So yeah, that's it for Scream 6. Now for the last movie for the weekend, the one I'm excited to talk about the most because oh god, it is looking like a disaster. And that movie is 65. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, that's it. That's all. Make sure to subscribe, like this video, leave a comment, turn on notifications, share the whole drill. If you want to check out any other prediction videos I made this year, you can go right ahead. All the ones I made this year or the past few years, go right ahead. There's also the canceled series where I go over all the movies that were supposed to come out but didn't. I've covered Scream 6 twice. The first time was episode 113 when it got its initial release date of like late March. It's supposed to come out the 31st of March. I talked about it alongside Bullet Train. So yeah, that's the first one. 113, right? Yes, 113. And the second time I talked about it was episode 165, where both Scream 6 and Dungeons and Dragons, both movies, they swapped release dates, kinda. Where Scream 6 was supposed to come out not May, March 31st. It got moved to May. Why do I keep saying May? God damn. March. By March 10th. While Dungeons and Dragons was supposed to come out March 3rd, but that got moved to the 31st. So a bit of a switcheroo right there. So I talked about it those two times. So if you want to watch those two episodes or any other episodes I've done, all 180 up to this point, you can go right ahead. You want to binge them all from beginning to now, I highly encourage it, so go do it. There's also box office recaps where I go over the box office results for any particular month. I just did the February recap very like hours ago, so that's on the channel now. So if you want to watch that or any other past recap videos I made on the channel, you can go right ahead. And yeah, that's it. That's all. I am out. Goodbye.